Hey, I'm Sarah Petty. I'm the founder of Olive Business Partners. We're a virtual CFO firm, and our mission is to help businesses not just survive, but thrive. I am about to be on the Online Prosperity Show, and I really hope you enjoy this episode where we talk about my journey from corporate through to becoming a virtual CFO and how virtual CFO can help your business thrive, find fulfillment as a business owner, and make sure that you're growing in a profitable way. Hope you enjoy this episode.
Now, welcome to yet another exciting episode of the Online Prosperity Show, your premium destination for uncovering the stories, strategies, and successes of today's most inspiring entrepreneurs. I'm your host, Prosper Taruvinga, and today we're diving into a journey that's as rhythmic as a Tahitian dance and also as strategic as a corporate boardroom. Now, Sarah, how are you doing today?
I'm very well. Thank you so much for having me on the podcast, Prosper.
Absolutely. Well, the pleasure is all mine. I think we're going to be doing a bit of dancing and also, just really coming to terms with growing our business with a virtual CFO. Am I correct in that?
Yeah, for sure. And look, we should bring more dancing to the boardroom. I'm all up for that.
Do you know what happens, Sarah, whenever I go into a boardroom? I'm looking around me and I'm looking at, wait a minute, we entered through a small door. Why did they put that big table inside there?
That's a good question, actually. I've never thought of the logistics of it, but the table is always much bigger than the door. Yeah, good question. You've already stumped me.
Absolutely. See, by the time the meeting is finished, I'm still trying to figure out how they did it, where the screws are and things like that. And then they're like, sorry, guys, the meeting is over. And you see, that's why I miss out on a lot of deals. But I'm guessing you're here to really connect business owners with flexible financial expertise that drives business growth. We're not talking about flat packs and tables and things of that nature.
That's it. Well, unless, of course, that's the nature of the business that I'm working with. But yes, what I specialize in is helping businesses to grow and getting the right financial expertise to help them with that, because, so many entrepreneurs go into business with great ideas. They're really passionate about what they do. They're creative, they're innovative, but not many go into business to manage their financials, apart from me. But not many do. And so it kind of becomes one of those things that you have to deal with, but you don't really have the expertise, you don't enjoy it, you're not passionate about it, but you can't avoid it. Any business owner needs to be across their financials, particularly if you want to grow your business.
Absolutely. I love that, because you're absolutely right. When people get into business, it's usually they are a passionate doctor or they're a passionate lawyer themselves, and they're the technician within the business. But then the actual business side of things has to do with marketing, finances, hiring, everything else that moves the needle. Now, could that be the reason, Sarah, why so many businesses don't go past the 3-year mark?
Yes. So I think so. There's about 60% of businesses that don't make it past that 3-year mark. And a lot of the time, the main reason is cash flow issues. Now, there's various reasons why that happens in different businesses, but a lot of it can actually be avoided with some careful planning, the right expertise to help you. I mean, if you're a business owner and you're struggling with cash flow and you don't have experience with that or no strategies to help get you out of a tricky situation, it's really tough, right? And that's why so many businesses end up failing. But there are always options. This is what I love to work with my clients on. No matter what kind of hole that you think you've got yourself into, there are always options. You just need to know how to find the right expertise, how to connect with the right people, and plan for that. Plan for getting out of it. It might not be a quick solution, but there's always a solution. And so my mission is really to see more of those businesses not just survive, but thrive. And I think, to your point, it can be not just avoided, but would love to see those businesses grow and prosper over time.
Absolutely. I quite love that. And for those that are watching right now, our guest, Sarah Petty, is the founder of Olive Business Partners. Now, she's led finance teams at global giants like GE, Kraft Foods, and Target. Is that how you pronounce it, right?
Target, depends how fancy you want to sound.
That's fancy. And now she owns her own virtual CFO firm. And that's the reason why it's quite important for us to start talking finances. As we have established, so many businesses don't go past the 3-year mark. Now, Sarah, you've had a wide array of big business experience. How does this sort of translate to the mom and pop shop that just really wants enough to send maybe Sally to college?
It's interesting because there's lots of skills that I learned through my corporate career that I'm able to bring to what I do now, but there's lots that is completely different in my approach working with small business owners versus big corporates. So, the things that I could take across, I've had 20 years of corporate career, how to manage your financials, those cash flow challenges we came across all the time. I've managed those on large scale, so it's much easier to think about it on a smaller scale and help business owners with those strategies. How to price your products, how to growth strategies for growing your revenue in a sustainable way to make sure that you're still making profit. All of those sort of financial strategies I've brought across from having done that on a really large scale. I was working with businesses that are multi-billion dollars of revenue. So being able to translate that experience into working with business owners who are, small to mid-tier businesses, that's very transferable. Where it's been quite different, though, is you're working with a business owner who, their passion, their life, their blood, sweat and tears has gone into this business. It's very different from working with a CEO. Now, a CEO has some level of investment in the business, obviously. They don't get to that position if they don't care about it, but it's not the same as it being something that you've built up yourself. And now I work mostly directly with founders and business owners. So it's a really personal journey, that financial journey. So a lot of their goals, even though they're business goals, they're tied to the personal outcomes. Because as you say, it might be they're having their business to allow their daughter to go to private school. They might be building their business to create a better retirement for them and their family. They might be looking for financial freedom. They might be looking for a lifestyle change. It's generally always tied back to some personal goal. And it's really important for me to understand that as their CFO, because I need to help them with the financial strategies to make that happen, because that's the why behind it. Yes, you can have a dollar amount of I want to make X amount of profit or revenue, but it really comes down to why do you want that? And that's what's going to help drive the business owner. So that's quite different from when I was working in corporate, and it's kind of a strategy that's set by a board, by shareholders, and you're really thinking about maximizing value for shareholder outcomes. This is about, yes, the maximization of financials, but sometimes a decision also might not be the one that's making the most profit, but it's helping to achieve whatever that personal goal might be. And you've got to balance that out as well, because we want the business to be sustainable and be making profit, but not at the expense of that owner's personal goals. And so that is a really tricky balance that I've had to learn and adapt and adjust versus my time in corporate.
Absolutely. I quite like that because you're absolutely right. With the CEO, he's just there to make sure that the profit of the business and sustainability and everything else goes along with it. But with a small business owner, that's passion. You know what I mean? And it's their livelihood and how they actually show up. And it usually ends up becoming their own identity. So much that I heard that, CEOs wake up at 6 a.m. and just to make a profit, and business owners wake up at 3 a.m. because it's their passion, So I don't know how far true that is, but that's just in sort of just in comparison to that. But This seems like a passion of yours. Was finance always the thing you wanted to do, or did this come up as a career move?
I've always had a career in finance. I kind of landed in it after university. I wasn't always on my mind of what I wanted to do. I didn't really know where I wanted to go. But what I really liked about finance was you were able to solve business problems. And finance, whether you like it or not, is kind of the language of business. It's what people talk when they're talking about business. So for me, being in finance allowed me, I could see end to end of how a business worked. I could help to solve problems from operations to sales to supply chain. I could see end to end and really help to have an impact on the business. So that's what I really enjoyed about finance. Now, what I love seeing is that using that problem solving to help those business owners achieve those goals that I'm talking about. So I want to see more small businesses thriving. Especially those purpose-driven business owners. If we can get more money into the hands of purpose-driven business owners that are creating a really positive impact in what they're doing, the more, whether you like it or not, the more money that you have, the more that you can invest into growing that impact. So, it's not just about, you want to build wealth and have financial freedom for yourself, but it also allows you to create that amplified impact for whether it's your clients, your customers, your family, your community. I think that's what I love about it, is solving those problems to create a bigger impact.
Absolutely. Was there any inspiration, maybe growing up, somebody who was in finance, or did you see this somewhere or watch somebody on TV and you said, that is definitely who I'm going to be? Because I'm just asking for my daughter, who is 6, and she's adamant she wants to be a witch. And I'm just thinking to myself, I don't think that's a career move. You know what I mean? It's too much watching Disney shows has now influenced her that's because apparently you can make potions and things like that. Was there something like that for you growing up?
Hey, look, I have a 5-year-old, and look, you never know their generation, which might be a career move by then. Who knows? Things could change. I actually didn't have a lot of exposure to finance or that type of industry when I was growing up. No one I knew worked in a corporate career. My dad was a tradesman, and a lot of my family had worked in trades as well. My mum was the record keeper of the house. So with the financials, she used to, for our home budget, she used to keep a little notebook of noting down all of the expenses and ticking off against the receipts, and whether she knew it or not, she was kind of doing the bookkeeping for the house. And so she used to teach me and my sister when we were younger, and we started earning our own pocket money, to keep track of that. And I used to resent her so much for making me keep these records at the time. And so I don't like to admit it, but it was probably some of that influenced me into going into accounting down the track, because she did instill that value in me of, understanding what you're spending, where it's going to, and making sure that you're making informed financial decisions. So, yeah, it wasn't necessarily, that big goal, but I think those small things that I saw along the way that influenced my career path.
Absolutely. Well, you ended up working with multinational corporations, and it was all
Yeah.
predicated on taking note and taking stock and things like that.
Yeah.
In a few sentences, how do you sort of maybe describe the career that you had, especially with these multinational corporations, and how did it then sort of, give you that aha moment that now it's time for me to step into helping smaller businesses?
Yeah, so 20 years across a corporate career, a lot of multinational or ASX listed businesses. And it's hard to summarize in, a few words. But look, I loved that career. I got so much out of it. I met some really talented people, lots of mentors, as well as when I got into senior roles, I had some brilliant team members that were working for me, who many of them I still keep in contact with today. So, it was something that really built not just, helped to build my career professionally, but also helped me to grow personally and make a lot of connections and friendships that I still have today. I had a very broad finance career, so I didn't really have in mind, a certain goal that I was trying to achieve in my career. I just knew that I wanted to progress. I wanted to keep feeling challenged. I liked the roles where I got to work directly with the business. So I haven't done a really traditional accounting career. I didn't go into the Big Four. I never did audit or anything like that. I was working more in what they call business partnering roles. So you're working with different teams. I was partnering with sales at one stage, partnering with supply chain at one stage, and sort of helping that function understand their financials and make financial decisions. And I really enjoyed that, working with non-finance people as well, because you understood then the real business problems, and I could kind of be the translator of, here's the numbers, this is what it means for you, and here's how you can make your job or your part of the business easier or more effective or greater impact. So that's what I enjoyed. And I did lots of those roles as I moved up into senior roles. I was managing teams. I spent a couple of years in Singapore and got some international experience where I was looking after all of the emerging markets in Asia, as well as we looked after Africa from that office, which was quite an experience. Because they're very diverse across all of Africa and all of Asia, and they were lumped into one role. So it was a lot of learning, but a really great experience for me to just see how other places do things, but also to have that resilience and adaptability, because I had to be shifting and thinking and listening and learning constantly throughout that role. So my last role in corporate was with Target, as you mentioned at the start. And I just got to the point that I was ready for something else. I wanted to lead a finance function. I wanted to be a CFO, but I still really liked that hands-on experience and being part of the business. And sometimes as you move into those senior roles in corporates, you get a little bit removed from the day-to-day of it, and you're sitting more in the boardrooms and not in the operational space. Now, some people love that, and that's for them. It just wasn't for me. So I took a role as CFO of a private company, a larger company still, that was a full-time role. And it was led by a CEO, the day-to-day operations, but the founders were still somewhat involved in it. And I really enjoyed that experience and working directly with the founders, because they just thought differently. They saw an opportunity, they would just make it work rather than think about all of the risks. It was just say yes and then make it work. They were really creative in how they solved problems. They were so open to new ideas and trialing something to see if it worked, in a calculated way, but open to trialing something. Whereas in corporate, sometimes, things get knocked down when they go through several layers of approval. So I really enjoyed that aspect of it, but was still kind of craving my own thing. And I did some research, talked to a lot of business owners, and started to see that there was this gap in the market for financial advice for businesses who wanted to grow, needed it to be strategic advice, not just reporting on the numbers, but helping them make the right financial decisions to grow their business. So a lot of the businesses I work with, they have an accountant. Some of them have a bookkeeper who's kind of helping them look backwards, on the past results, so their records are accurate, they've filed their taxes. Your accountant is a very important person who keeps you out of jail as a business owner, make sure you're compliant. But they're not always skilled in that forward-looking strategic financial planning. And so I tested out my idea, got a lot of interest back, and decided to make the move and start my own business. And so, here I am today with a full client book and a growing team, because it is a skill that a lot of businesses lack and just require that to really unlock that next stage of growth.
Absolutely, and you're absolutely right. Half of the time, the reason why businesses stall is because there's no one who's doing the pull within the business. Because yes, you're right. Accountants will be really good at being very compliant, but it ends there. They're not pulling you further and showing you what's possible, and playing out all these scenarios of how else you can grow. And I can see why when you got into Target and started going, further up the ranks, you were being taken away from the petty cash, right?
Yeah. Is that a pun?
I don't know. I thought I'd put that one in there just so that it sings. But you transitioned from obviously very stable roles and secure roles that you were in, multinational corporations. I mean, if you play the game right, you would stick around there and there's room for movement and growth and things like that. And you went on to start your own business. That's a significant shift. Were there not any fears, or had you already played out the financial projections and you already know what you were getting yourself into?
Oh, Prosper, I still have fears. I think most business owners do. Yeah, absolutely. It wasn't an easy decision to make, right? Because exactly to your point, you've got much more security in a corporate role, and I could have kept doing that for years to come and be earning a decent salary at a senior level. But I just had that passion inside and that burning to do something else. And, yes, you can have that great salary and the money, but if it's not fulfilling, or you're working just those really long hours to try, build this for someone else, when are you getting the time to actually enjoy that money that you're making, or, have that fulfillment in your life? And to me, a career is one piece of it. And I'm really still quite ambitious and want to grow this business into something bigger. But I have other things that are important to me. So I didn't want to be solely tied to my career. I have a family, I have friends, I want, my own health, my passions, my hobbies, all of that. I want a really balanced, fulfilling life. And so that was part of making this decision. So it wasn't without a lot of planning. It definitely wasn't without fear. I talked with, many other business owners who've done this before, who were helpful and reassuring and helped me learn from some of their mistakes. Early on, I worked with a business coach as well, which was really helpful to just get my thoughts in order and help give me some advice on areas that I wasn't so comfortable with. So I'm talking about my clients, finance is not the area that they're comfortable with and they don't have the skill set. For me, I had my budget in detail before I started the business. I'd done all the compliance, I'd registered the business, I was ready to go from the back end, and then suddenly realized, oh, I've got to market myself and I've got to find clients. And I had no sales and marketing experience, right? So I needed some help with that side of things. And so a business coach helped me come up with some strategies to do that. So I think, yes, there's fear. There's still fear in growing a business, but it's doing it in a way that hiring the right experts to get the help. Because as I've grown my business, I've got a social media manager, I've got some support on operations and process improvements. I've hired for IT support where I've needed it, legal. I've kind of gone in and got the experts, so at least I know I'm getting the right advice and I'm not flying blind. I think that's one thing that's been really important. It can feel like a big investment to put that into hiring other people, whether it's on an ongoing basis or even for once-off advice. But I just believe it's worth hiring the right people to get it right the first time. Hire the best person, don't hire the cheapest person. That's my motto, is just sometimes just hiring, trying to get it done at a really cheap price for, someone who might not have the right skill set or the expertise isn't the right fit. It's find the person who will do the best job and then work out how you're going to make that work and pay for it. But that's been really helpful in growing my business in a sustainable way and giving me confidence in what I'm doing to grow. So, yeah, if you have some advice on how to get rid of that ongoing fear, I'd be happy to hear it, but I'm not sure there's many business owners who don't have fear at some stage.
Oh, absolutely. Especially when you start hiring people and you're coming close to payroll, paydays, you start having this, oh my God, these people expect, me to be there for them, to pay rent, look after their families. So it never ends. Whatever stage in business, it's like playing a video game. The higher you level up, the bigger the monsters, and that's the fun part of it. But yeah, and congratulations, because you come up with a really well-to-do brand. And I mean, we've met in a few spaces out there, which means you're definitely out there marketing and showcasing your business. But what's with the olive tree? Because for me, a tree symbolizes growth and things of that nature. But why specifically the olive tree?
Very good question. So there is a reason behind the olive tree. So the olive tree is the longest living fruit-bearing tree. And so I did want something that symbolized growth and abundance and longevity, because all of that is really important to my clients and what I try to achieve for my clients. So that's the symbolization of the olive tree. It's all about how do we get clients from in those early days. We want to provide advice to clients at all stages. So in those early days as a little seedling, when you're looking to grow, how do you get the right advice to grow your business to the point where you are a well-established tree ready to bear fruit, and how do you get the right advice for the right stage of business growth that you're at? So that was what we're trying to achieve through Olive. The second part of it, though, is Olive was actually the name of my great-grandmother, who lived well into her 90s. And so I feel like it's a name that's quite meaningful to me, and she definitely embodied longevity and continued to grow and learn throughout her life. So that's the reason why Olive is meaningful to me.
Absolutely. And this is such a great way to honor somebody who is that important in your life. And congratulations for obviously putting these aspects within your brand, because some people just pick something just because, yeah, it looks good, smack it on to some canvas, and there you go. So
And sorry to cut you off. Just on my earlier point, I did hire someone to help me bring that vision to life through my brand, because again, I wanted to, get the right person, the best person who could help me with the colors, the logo, the essence of the brand, the marketing message. So that was really important to me, that I had that idea in my head, but bringing it to life when that wasn't my expertise was well worth the investment.
Absolutely. And it does shine through the work that you have done. Congratulations on that. Now, Sarah, your work ends up doubling up as a therapist or counselor or things of that nature. I don't know, because people would rather talk about sex than talk about their finances. And especially when you're future forecasting and showing them what's possible, half of the time they are not yet the person that thinks they can achieve those sort of goals. And you literally have to roll your sleeves, pull them in, and then say, hey, this could be you. Now, I know that finance is usually a lot numbers driven, but with the kind of people that you end up working with, how do you incorporate empathy into your financial strategies with your clients? Because I'm supposing there's going to be a lot of that.
Yes. And some clients will still prefer to talk to me about sex than finance, that's for sure. So we keep our conversations very open in client conversations. But you're absolutely right. And when it comes back to tying the financials through to those very personal goals for business owners, for me, it's really important about building that trust. And if someone's going to hire me as a virtual CFO, it could be a really vulnerable thing for them to open up their books and tell me about their financial problems and where they're seeing challenges and what they don't know. That's a really vulnerable thing for someone to do. And so they want to put that trust in the CFO. And I don't take that for granted whatsoever. I know that, that's a big thing for me to take on. And I have absolute respect for that and for my clients. I love that part of it though, because for me, and that's probably what I missed as I climbed the ladder at corporate. I love that personal connection, and yes, sometimes I'm having a discovery call, and we've already talking about their personal life and the problems that they're going through and what they're trying to achieve and how they've gone through some hard times, and it might seem a bit irrelevant if you're a finance person who just wants to talk numbers. But for me, that background, that understanding of where that pain, where that passion is coming from is really important in how I set the financial strategy to help them alleviate that. That for me is a really important part of it. And I love that connection and being able to have that personal connection. And a huge part of what I do is taking the stress off a business owner. And financial stress can be that thing that, keeps you up at 3 a.m. when you're stressing over whether you can make that payroll payment the next day. If you've got supplier payments due and you haven't been paid from your own customers, those are things that are really stressful and can make or break a business. And I want to help alleviate that for my clients so that they can sleep at night and know that not only they've got cash in the bank to be able to pay those things, but that they've got a strategy to grow and create abundance in their business. So it's not just, yes, they can get through the day, but they've actually got passion back behind, what they do. So that's a really important part of it. I have always had a passion for the people side of things, which might be a bit odd for a finance person, but that's what I loved about the leadership roles that I was in. I loved working with my team, mentoring them, coaching them. I loved working with people within the business in other functions to understand their day-to-day challenges and how I could solve that. I've always had an interest in psychology and how people think and work and what motivates them. That for me is part of that. I can do more of that in this role now than I probably could previously. Yes, part therapist, part CFO, but I wouldn't change it. I love it.
Absolutely. And obviously, since you're going to be vested in their success and things of that nature, you might also have some sort of a criteria of the people that you end up wanting to work with, because not everyone is going to be an ideal person, because if somebody's going to bring in all their luggage and everything else that comes along with it, even airlines charge you a little bit extra if you bring in 1 kilogram extra than you agreed with them to bring in. So what sort of people do you like working with, and preferably with that extra amount of luggage?
Yeah. In the early days, I didn't think too much about this, and I have defined it more over time. But I feel that naturally I've attracted in the people, that resonate with my messaging, that resonate with that approach, because there are some people out there that don't want to share their personal goals and want to keep that distance between just tell me the numbers and that's it. Like, I don't want to talk about anything else. That's not my approach, and not that I need to dig into every aspect of their personal life, but I do want to understand, what's their goals and what's meaningful to them, so that I can create a strategy to help them achieve that. So that, someone who's purpose driven, someone who wants passion and fulfillment out of their business, that's really important for me. And also that they want to grow, that they've got a drive to grow. If you're the kind of business owner that's sort of happy where you're at and you just want to be able to maintain that, and there's nothing wrong with that, that is totally fine, but that's not where I'm going to add the most value. I really help business owners who are looking to grow, unlock that next level of growth, work out what's stopping them, what those challenges are, what the obstacles are, and then help them create a strategy to unlock that next level of growth. So I think it's someone, who's got passion, who's got purpose, they've got drive, and they're willing to take action, because you might find this in your line of work too, but sometimes you can give advice to people and they don't take it on board. And so you keep kind of going through the same thing every month because they're not taking action. I have a great book of clients now who I know when we have meetings, they follow up on everything, and they'll, and we see momentum because they're taking that action. So yeah, action driven is a key one as well. And look, at the start, when you start a business, you're sort of worried about turning someone away, and not thinking through your ideal client. But for me now, I would much rather work with someone who resonates with my style, and not everyone will, and I'm totally okay with that. And so if I'm not for you, there's other people out there that have different approaches, and that's okay. But I seem to be now attracting in those clients that I love working with, and I've got a great group of clients now.
Absolutely, and I appreciate that, because I was brought up to know that no two fingers on the same hand are the same height. So no matter how somebody comes in, even if they've got the best business, they're your ideal client, but if they're not the right fit for you, then that's just going to be a slog trying to get them whatever result that they're looking for. And especially the fact that where you sit is not really where a lot of business people would, usually have their friends talking about, oh yeah, I've got a CFO, in within my business. It's very difficult for them to actually have an understanding. So you really need the right kind of person with the right mindset for them to have an understanding of that. Now, if somebody wants to brag about having a virtual CFO at the next barbecue or the next, swimming gala event or at the school gate, what's the first thing they could do, Sarah, to get a hold of you and maybe earn those bragging rights?
We do get a lot of business, most of our business through referral. So there must be some virtual CFO discussions over barbecues. I'm not sure. But the best way to get in contact, so either visit the website, which is olivebusinesspartners.com.au. Lots of information there, more about me, more about the team, and about our services. We do have some standard packages, but can tailor them depending on the client's needs and what stage of business they're at too. And otherwise, I'm very happy to have a call at any time, and you can book that via our contact page on the website. Even if people are just kind of, is this for me? I'm not sure. I want to learn a bit more, ask some questions, feel free to book in a call, no obligation. And again, I have a network of, accountants, bookkeepers, and even other virtual CFOs that if I'm not the right finance resource for you, I'd still love to help you and point you in the right direction.
Absolutely. I'll make sure that all those links are in the show notes below so that people can obviously make a decision if this is the right next step for them. Now, somebody might not be sure because, like I keep saying, where you are positioned in, the sort of hierarchy of needs, especially when businesses are sort of getting started, somebody is thinking, I already am paying for a bookkeeper, I'm already paying for an accountant. Where would a CFO probably sit, and what will be the best sort of use of a CFO's time or connection with your business, just so that people that are just umming and ahhing behind the scenes have an understanding of when the right time would be to maybe give you a call?
Yeah, sure. There's probably a couple of signs in your business that you're ready for a virtual CFO. And as you say, often your first finance type resource will be your accountant, because no matter what level of growth you're at, no matter what level of income, everyone needs to file their taxes, right, and set up their business structure. So usually they've hired an accountant first. When you're ready for a CFO, there's a couple of signs. So firstly, you're in a growth phase, or you're wanting to grow your business. And often business owners will be able to grow it themselves without a virtual CFO to the point of even $1, $2, $3 million. But there sort of gets to this point where then you've hit a roadblock and you can't seem to grow from there. And just doing the same thing won't necessarily get you the next phase of growth. One thing I often say is that what got you to 1 million won't get you to 10 million. You really need to think differently about what you're doing. So that's one. If you've got really big goals behind where you want to take your business, and that might be, double the business in 2 years, or maybe the business owner has a goal to sell the business at a certain value over time, or you want to expand into international markets, whatever it is, often the business owner will have a big goal, but no real financial plan in how to achieve that goal. So that's where a virtual CFO can come in and help you work out in the long term, what's your 3, 5, 10-year plan to achieve that goal, but then what do you need to be doing in the short term to make that happen day to day. And then the last one is just often business owners, they become that CEO of their business, but they don't have any other executives on their team to have those executive level discussions. And so who do you talk to when you want to bounce ideas off around strategy, taking a risk, growing your business, entering a new market, a new product launch? You've got, often they've got a team of quite a few people, but they're not really at that level to be able to discuss the business strategy, or they're not privy to the financials, so they can't kind of understand the bigger picture. And so that's often where a CFO can come in. And that's one of the biggest things that I probably didn't expect is business owners have said to me, oh, finally, I have someone to talk to about these things, because it can feel really isolating being in that leadership role and not having someone at your level to be able to discuss that with. So I think that in those kind of situations is where I find people are ready for a virtual CFO, and where we can come in and quickly make an impact for you.
There I was thinking I'm just gonna, listen more to my little girl and get a little magic potion for me to then get to the next level of business. But there's people like yourself that people can actually rely on. But somebody might be thinking, oh, I'm not sure about this. Maybe they're just a one person business, but obviously they're doing all right and things of that nature. Maybe you can share a story. I know obviously you are not going to be able to tell us in detail what would have happened, but just at a general sort of surface level, where your virtual CFO services has made a significant impact on a client's business trajectory, just so that people can see themselves in the shoes of the kind of clients that you want to work with.
Yeah, sure. I might share two short examples of slightly different businesses. So one business I work with is pretty much a one-person business. He's done a phenomenal job of building the business up to a quite a substantial size on his own, and then got to that point where he's ready to grow, or had been encountering quite a few cash flow issues, very lumpy cash flow through the year, and wanted some help just getting out of that living day to day on, can I pay my payroll? Will I be able to afford my bills this week? And away from that to conversations about, well, where am I taking the business in the next 3 to 5 years? What do I need to be thinking about to grow? So the first thing I did was come in and help with some cash flow forecasting and getting a little bit of support in place with an overdraft facility to make sure that he's got a bit of buffer and just can sleep at night knowing that that's not going to be a major issue. And so slowly we'll start to build up that cash flow balance so he won't rely on the overdraft so much, but it has helped to just alleviate a bit of risk in the short term. And then now we're shifting that conversation away from, is there money in the bank to pay next week, to starting to talk about, well, where are we taking the business, and what are those goals that he wants to work towards? So he wants to take more holidays. How do you get to a point where you can hire someone to take some things off your plate? Or what should that next hire be? Or what's the financial targets you need to get to that can trigger you to make those types of decisions? So probably hiring is a key one over the next couple of years, plus thinking about just how you make the business grow in a sustainable way without breaking it, without falling back into cash flow problems, and reinvesting back into the business at certain times. So that's sort of one example that, where a business owner had taken it all on his own. I have a second example of a business I'm working with who's had a couple of offers to buy their business, but it hasn't quite been at the value that they've been looking for. So they're open to a sale, but they really want to increase that valuation. And so they brought me on as a virtual CFO to help with the management of it and just look at their end-to-end financial processes and make sure that everything is up to scratch. But then also think about, how do we increase that valuation? So to be honest, they didn't have a lot of huge problems in, how they're managing financials, but there just was no clarity around reporting, understanding of the different divisions within their business. And so we've implemented a monthly rhythm to start reviewing that and knowing, where is the business making money? Where could it be making more money? Where we've got costs that aren't really adding value? Is there pricing decisions that we need to look at? And how do we overall grow that profitability? And so now it's, well documented. We're looking at it every month. We're starting to see profit improvement and hopefully work towards that goal of being able to sell that business at a much higher valuation.
Absolutely. That's the goal of any business owner, right? To be able to realize, because yes, we are working within the business, but the actual payday usually is at the sale of the business. That's where you actually see that I've actually created an asset that will see you through. And thank you so much for sharing those, because I think it just really sheds the light as to where you would need a virtual, financial person. Now, you strike me as an accountability partner in ways that, when a business owner, like you said, they might not have people to talk to, and also there's this whole thing in Australia where you can't really talk finances with people that don't get it. It then becomes like tall poppy in a way. And if you've got somebody who you know, you've got that arrangement with them. What are the arrangements or the engagements that you normally have with people? Is it like a weekly, monthly? How would somebody engage with somebody like yourself, just so that people know, what the limits are? And
Yeah, sure.
should stop calling.
So I have, there's 3 standard packages that I have, which are for a monthly fee, you'll get a certain level of support from us. So if you really want a sort of CFO advisor to help you review your financials, give you some advice each month, that's our lowest level package. Through to where you're having a weekly meeting with the CFO, we're kind of there as your hands-on partner in the business, being able to give you on-the-spot advice for big, high-stakes financial decisions that you might be navigating, and sort of everything in between. So you can have a look at those standard packages on the website. And then if your business is going through a particular challenge, or there's a certain level of expertise or support that you need, we're very open to tailoring those packages specifically for your business as well. So that's generally how we work, is on a monthly basis. You are not locked in. We work with you, you give us notice if you decide that it's not working for you, but I don't think we've had a business that hasn't seen an improvement in their financials. In fact, we've got this year, for every client on our book, they're on track to grow their revenue from last year and make a profit by 30 June. And that was not the case for some of them last year. So before they started working with us. So we've seen a real improvement across all of our clients. We do also do ad hoc project work. If there is a particular financial challenge that you might be going through, that you just need support through that tricky period, or we have sometimes seen with startups, who are looking at raising seed funding, things like that. They just want a CFO on board to help them with financial modelling and setting up, the investor pitch to have the best chances at raising that funding. Those kind of things we can help with. So all of that details on the website.
Absolutely. You see, they say you're an average of the 5 people you hang around with, and you are offering a cheat code for people to be one of the 5 that they can hang around in order to grow a business that's profitable and enjoyable. And I quite like that. Now, obviously, there's so much that you can offer, and I'm going to encourage people to jump onto the website so that they can, start to see whether having a virtual, finance person can help them within their business. Now, when we started, Sarah, you told us that, the whole corporate thing was no longer gelling well with you, and you wanted a bit of work-life balance, and you've sort of introduced your kid in the show. So I'm thinking it's fair game for us to sort of now ask, you've become a business owner now, and obviously a mother. How's that sort of panning out while you're also trying to navigate the challenges of work, life, the balance, and the way that you're working? In some of the cases that you have elaborated, some of them are like really high pressure stakes. So did you find the balance you were looking for?
Yeah, it's not without its challenges, but I have so much more flexibility and so much more balance in doing what I'm doing versus when I was working to someone else's timeline in corporate. So I have the opportunity now to pick and choose who I work with, how I work, the hours I work. I'm really fortunate, and maybe this comes back to attracting those ideal clients, but all of my clients have gone into business for similar reasons, and a lot of them are parents of young children, and they understand those demands. So I would very rarely get someone call me after 5 o'clock because they're having their own family time, and unless it was an absolute emergency, they would respect that and wouldn't call me, where that was not the case often in my corporate roles. I don't work weekends. I generally try to take Friday afternoons off and work around that. I feel like I have much more time for my son. I don't have to do the long commute into the office anymore. I'm there for school drop-offs and pickups and can spend time with him after school. And yeah, yes, of course, there's stress of building a business from scratch. It's not an easy task. But being able to do it in my own way and build my business in a sustainable way that works around me, no regrets. I don't look back. I have a lot more balance now than I used to.
Congratulations. You see, Sarah, whenever a small business, makes a bit of a success or sometimes a sale, they say they do a little dance behind the scenes and, in celebration, because obviously it's not easy putting it all together. Now, in your business, my question is, do you do a Tahitian dance, a Bollywood dance, or a hip hop dance?
Depends on the day and the wind. But, it was a funny story because I'd, been working, we talked before about having the financial security of the salary, and then suddenly I'd gone to starting this business from scratch. And the very first time I engaged a client for a micro project, and I think they paid me a couple of $100 as a deposit. And it had felt like it was the hardest I had worked for a few $100 ever. And I got that into my bank account, and I swear I was doing all kinds of dancing around the room because it was just the most exciting thing to feel like I'd actually brought that to life. So yeah, you get the highest of highs sometimes and the lowest of lows, but yes, lots of celebration dances.
Absolutely. And part of your role within a business is to help them plan for the future and make sure that they arrive at that future that they sort of planned for. What's next for Olive Business Partners? What have you got lined up that you've planned for us now that you've brought us into your world?
Yeah, well, I want to continue to grow. I have a goal over the next 5 years to impact 100 businesses. And so whether that's through our direct services on a monthly basis, project work, we're looking at helping smaller businesses or startups with a course or, some resources. But I want to impact 100 businesses in the next 5 years, because back to what we were talking about at the start of the podcast, I don't want to see those businesses fail in the first 3 years. And, another stat which is quite depressing is that there's nearly half of all small and mid-tier businesses in Australia don't actually make a profit. And again, I think there's opportunity to improve that with the right support and the right financial advice at the right time and the right stage, for your business growth. So that's my goal, is to continue to grow our impact as I grow my business, grow my team, and impact those 100 businesses. I'd love to revisit this in 5 years and maybe we can talk about how I've achieved that.
Absolutely. Now, Sarah, I can't thank you enough for the time, the effort, and the journey that you've actually taken, because your life story and your experience is now going to enhance those. It's not just 100 businesses, it's all the families that also are dependent on that business. So in a word, you're literally shaping and changing the futures of those people that are going to be impacted by Olive Business Group. So thank you so much for the steps that you're taking. And I can't wait to celebrate this, like you said, in 5 years to see how far you've gone.
Yeah, amazing. And I'll teach you some Bollywood dance moves for when we're celebrating, if you like.
Fantastic. Let's go with that. But thank you so much for, sharing this incredible journey with us, from corporate corridors to these entrepreneurial ventures that you are now taking while just keeping the rhythm alive, both in finance and in dance. It's not easy. So many people, like we have established, don't go past the 3-year mark. Some don't even make a profit. But you're making the most of it. So I really, really appreciate that. And for those that are watching right now, thank you so much for making it this far into the episode. And if Sarah's story resonated with you, I want you to go into the comments there and maybe share your own experiences about balancing your passion and profession, right? We just want to see what people are doing out there in order to actually survive, instead of just working, grinding, which is now leading to the biggest pandemic of burnout. Okay. And while you're at it, Don't forget to subscribe to the Online Prosperity Show, not for the dance moves, but for the inspiring stories that you might hear from our guests. Because in our next episode, we're going to be exploring ideas to enhance your happiness and well-being. And just might want to say, if you are a partner, a brother, a sister, a mother, a father of somebody who's running a business and they keep telling you they really need to level up their game, I suggest you share this episode with them. That will be the greatest gift you could ever give them. Not only will they get in touch with Sarah, but they might actually realize they're not alone, especially when it comes to running a business that's profitable and enjoyable. And I want you to remember one thing. Prosperity is not just about wealth. It's about living a life full of purpose and joy. Until next time, bye for now.